Jai Hind viewers, we welcome you back to another episode of our dialogues, wherein we are interacting with one of our members who is an expert in transfer of technology. Mr. Pradeep Gupta is a technocrat and an ex-bureaucrat. He left the government of India to set up a think tank, security and policy initiatives to work for absorption of TOTs and improvement of border management. He is also mentoring startups in AI, VR, AR. He is ex OSD indigenization MOD, ex Joint Secretary MHA, ex PS2 President, and ex OSD and PS2 Defense Minister. He has spoken extensively on our YouTube channel on topics like MRO synergies, absorption of TOTs, Make in India with MRO as a focus, best practices in L1 systems, LCC based acquisition, and on the occasion of the National Technology Day. It's a pleasure to have you back with us, Mr. Gupta, and I will seek your views once again on your specialization of transfer of technologies. As you're aware, we have been getting TOTs of several major defense equipments. However, we again obtained a TOT even for upgrades and, of course, for new weapon systems also. Why is this TOT required again and again in your view? Mr. Gupta, please.
Thank you, Jalal Matharu, for this nice introduction. And my connect with the MRO Digest has been almost long, almost 10 months old. And we have been exchanging a lot of things. Very important questions you have asked that we have had TOTs right from 4-5 decades ago till date we are getting TOTs. But it's always a TOT story only, means one TOT after another TOT, another TOT. We have not been able to upgrade the weapons even with the TOT obtained at the first instance. So what had been my reading, if you take the example of T-72 tank, which I personally saw when in late 80s, I was there part of the ordnance factories. We got the T-72 tank technology sometime in mid 70s from Russia. And the whole organization was struggling to internalize it. That was, I think, the first major technology transfer happening from the Russian side. And it went on for decades, and still some parts are being indigenized. So when the Russians gave the design drawing, and they also did the hand-holding, entire spectrum of the components and the technologies which were offered by the Russians in different factories, different units of the ordnance factories. So the teams were there to work on those. But then what later we found that in late 90s, when the T-90 tank was purchased, again the TOT was part of it. And several components, several systems were again transferred, and the cost was there. So then it raised a question that why this repeat transfer of technology when it was already there with us since early 80s. So that means something we have not been able to internalize or digest, or not been able to leverage it. But that aside, what we realized that though it was touted as a TOT, it was a build to print transfer. So they gave us drawing. They made us make those components, establish the quality control procedures of that component in India, and Ordnance Factory and the other organization did the development of MSME ecosystem in it, in the country. So this was there, but then the design thing, the design aspects were never internalized. I don't blame any particular organization, because it's a very complex process. If you change the design or you try to do something on your own, then there is HSP issue comes. Thereafter, a lot of things, because the technology is from Russia. We had a contract like complicated one that we had to take their approval at some point of time. So this was complicated. All these things constrained us to leverage that technology to the next level. And as a recipient of the technology, as the organization which is custodian of that technology and responsible for it, we were a little less confident of going ahead on our own in several aspects. So this is the story which actually happened. If you go to specific technology, say for the engine manufacturer, we had set up an engine factory Abadi for exclusively for that. Then there were a lot of MSMEs connected with that and the trial system. But holistically, that engine technology itself, had it been some smart nation like China or the Taiwan or the Korea, they would have internalized and made a separate new design engine for themselves. Totally different from this also by understanding the know-how, how they went into this. Basically, it's a reverse engineering, though reverse engineering is not a much touted word internationally. So it's a prototype development they do. So nobody is going to offer you technology on platter. Means that they will hand you each and everything, how the thought process happened in that country and how they conceptualized, how they did it. So at the moment, what I see that we must identify the gaps, try to figure it out that how we can improve in that in my own way. Though we are free to discuss, and obviously Russians may not disclose or divulge their intricacies or internal details, but we have to do some guessing work. So that's why I'm mentioning that nobody is going to offer you on platter. We have to do a lot of. So the very outstanding people should have been there, and they could have not only for the tank. If you see for the aircraft, there was a pact for ToT because some separate plants were set up for the Su-30. Even for MiG also, we have a lot of components being imported from erstwhile USSR constituents. Now they are independent countries, even from Russia. But then for the GE or for the Safran engines, we were looking for a completely new setup. So to make the, so at least some leveraging of that technology, yes, exactly, it may not suit us, but then could have been done. So wherein we have to constitute something, I mean, do something on our own to take that technology, whatever has been shared by that country, and try to put our own inputs in it in consultation with the academia and others, and then do it. So this is where the repeat, what you mentioned, that repeat ToT is happening. For this Sukhoi also, you will find the same. If the some advanced version of Sukhoi comes and the nation decides to purchase it, then you will find that again we have to set up new plants and take a new ToT for those components. So even after 40-50 years, we are doing this. There is some because the countries like Japan and Korea and Taiwan and China, these were also at the same level more or less in 1940s and 50s when we also started our journey. And today you see where they are. So that bus we have missed several times. So this is what I want to mention, that there has been some lack of focus, lack of vision in handling the ToT. ToTs are just considered as a byproduct. When the DPP was being revised and they had invited comments from the public in 2020, I had a little long 2-page, 3-page note to the concerned officer in the Ministry of Defense. He was on the technical manager land system, because he was the responsible person to receive those suggestions. But in that, I had mentioned several things. I may not take time to repeat those, but then wherein I told that ToT repository at least has to be created, there has to be central monitoring system. And you will be surprised that the draft of the ToT chapter, which was there in the first DPP revision sometime in 2004-5, When I was there in the defense ministry, we dealt almost 1920 difference. It was same there in the DPP to 2020. What they call it, defense acquisition procedure, DAP. So the importance of ToT has not been given and it is being handled in a routine manner. A routine manner like any other activity. Same is for the MRO. The entire focus is on to get the weapon or the component, that platform. Rest of the things are not given due importance. So that's why when the actual weapon comes or the platform comes, we face these problems, and down the line, when 10 years, 15 years later, you are back to square one. So this is my observation, what I like to share with you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Gupta. See, what you have said that it's very, you have mentioned gaps, which are there, and it's in the sense that whenever we have absorbed the TOTs, though you're saying it's build to build, but there is a very positive thing which has happened is that our ordnance factories have been able to tap our MSMEs, right?
Yes.
And so that's very positive. That means
Yes.
there is a national strength amongst the MSMEs, firstly, a desire to do something like that. And obviously, when they were producing something and giving it to you, they were passing though all the inspection standards which were laid down. So that means the product which was being received by you was meeting those standards. That means within our industry, at the MSME level, there was a reasonable amount of resilience and strength and perseverance to produce those for us. So that's a positive which I take from what you said. And the second aspect which you say you used in passing the word academia. Now, absolutely there's no doubt that if you look at our variety of sectors which we have academia related to, there are many sectors where we have succeeded. Automatically, first thing which comes to mind is IT, which we have succeeded. But there are other sectors also recently which have succeeded. The third thing which I would say is that over the years, we talked about 70s, 80s, our own country's national defense industrial base has also been, getting rising. So now that means that we are in a better position to maybe do what you're saying was maybe not done in the past. So these are all sort of things which I get from what you said. So now, if you look at the equipment which is being manufactured, let's say, by many countries, what they do is essentially they source some components at times from other places. They do not produce the entire thing under one roof, and there is a sort of an agreement. And if you look at our industry, let's specifically come down to the aspect of engines. So engines is normally in any system the most critical part. You will agree. Whether it's an aircraft, we talk about engine. Whether it's tank, you gave the example of an engine. So now let's look at engine technology. While we can look at the entire tank and we can identify the gaps, no doubt. So you look at specifically the engine. Now, in the case of an engine, in the case of a tank, let's say specifically, we need to produce an engine which fits into a particular space, which weighs a particular amount, and then it produces a certain amount of horsepower and torque, so that it delivers the correct power to weight ratio. That is the broad thing. So you may have an engine which can produce the power, but it's not fitting in. So this is where the challenge comes. And normally metallurgy is also an issue in this. But I think now that with some stretch, our academia industry, especially let's say case of engines, where we have got, let's say, industrial base. So there some industries are producing engines, right? Whether in collaboration with a foreign firm or their own technology. So there is some scope. Now, I don't know where the scope can start. Should it start from academia? Should it start from industry? Should it start from the policymaker? Or should it be start from the person, the institution which has accepted the ToT? So I think there is no one ownership which we can see over here. So maybe if we have a policy which allows people to take ownership for developing and they are supported, something like what is done in the United States and maybe in Israel, then we may start this happening, because we have the engineers, and I think we are pretty much better in metallurgy also now than we used to be. And we are producing our indigenously designed, for example, in the case of engine automobiles, which are coming there. So I think maybe you could throw some light on it as uh, going away from the just specific TOT issue. With all this which I have said, is it possible to have a policy which gives a particular industry or a group of industries a certain amount of funding to be able to produce an engine which meets a particular requirement, not giving the design of the engine, what type of engine it should be, just say that in this much space, you produce an engine which will produce this much of horsepower and we should have this much of reliability. So do you think such a policy, if it is given, will the industry be able to, today condition, you have got a pretty close, you're mentoring people. So is it possible that if such a policy comes, then you think with a little stretch, we will be able to now produce an engine which may be totally different from what is there, which has been imported, but which meets the requirement? Mr. Gupta, please.
Thank you, General. Very pertinent question you have raised about that, say, for taking engine as an example. And it is the heart of any such platforms. Either you take the aircraft or to the tank or armored fighting vehicle, whatever it is. So these major weapon platforms, engine is the major thing. So in fact, one of the top bosses in the defense production and the defense ministry with whom I worked, he had 5-6 such items in mind, and but then as it happens, that didn't go progress much. So engine was one of the key areas identified. But if government pushes everything, then we have the tendency to look at the government only. On our own, what the corporates can do, or academia can do, or the research institution. I'm not talking of DRDO, but there may be other research institutions too that are there in the private sector too. So how they can develop synergy. And if you look at the business angle right from the day one, even before the actual product is or the item is not even conceptualized, then it is failures. It is a recipe for failure. So such things are deep-seated. If you see the Rolls-Royce or GE or even Caterpillar, they have been making engine for almost 80, 90, 100 years. And they had that institutional their memory and the systems. Nobody else could replicate. Maybe they did not share those details, but then now somehow the China has been able to make it. Some good things are being made in Japan also, in their own companies. So somebody has done it. So where we lacked is one thing. So regarding the policy, you are talking about government. Government can facilitate through taxation, through other legislations, through import of technology. But the actual initiative motivation has to come from the team which is carrying forward. Ideally, in the past, it was thought to be a government task itself, that government will go ahead and then because all the technologies were in the government lab only. Either you see HAL or Ordnance Factory or BML or anybody, any other organization in the defense. I'm exclusively talking about defense, not the non-defense. So where the recipients were there. Now, in the private sector too, like for GE, you are getting in the HAL. You didn't go for the private sector, that they can also be there. Yes, it is up to HAL to incorporate MSME or other aviation industry, even from private sector or corporate sector, in their project of handling GE 414F engine. But same is like happened with the Ordnance Factory and other organizations, that over the period of 40, 50, 60 years, they have been getting TOT, they have been using the MSMEs for this, and whole ecosystem has evolved. If you go to Nagpur or to Chennai, or you to go to Bangalore, Hyderabad, I've been to these places and interacted with hundreds of MSMEs, and some are very capable. They take the challenge, they are ready to take up the challenge. That yes, certainly success is not available in one go, but then MSME can take up one part, like, or maybe two parts. Integration is one part. One is the major job, what you have been rightly propagating from this platform of MRO Digest, that we must strive for the integration of it. So the policy, like for virtual design or the digital twin of that component, which will quite I don't think the cost wise it will be very expensive if I make a digital twin or virtual creation of that component, as compared to physically making it, which is going to take time also and cost also. So that is where the policy can encourage that the stakeholders can invest in those technologies, and which is available world over. Then for various permutation combination, because these technologies, these computational abilities were not available even 5 years ago, not to talk of 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Like using quantum computing for computational fluid dynamics, or for better semiconductor design in the adjusting the band gap in the materials, there are millions of calculations have to be done. And if you sit down and doing 1%, even in computer, if you try to do in a supercomputer type of thing, it will take months, and the entire team will be required. So the calculation part can be outsourced to the quantum computing. Quantum computer is used as a tool to aid the AI-based systems in the VR design or the digital twin design. So once you come and design a system, integrate it, as you have rightly pointed out, the system integrator or the system designer, conceptualizer knows that, say, if a piston is to be made, say in India, that facility is not available to make that metallurgy of that piston. I know in world it is available in this particular country. We have a pact or get it from that, maybe from South America, from US, or yes, there are certain materials which are prohibited, and we have suffered on those. So that is where the government interventions will be required to somehow bring to table that component. If that is also not there, the designer knows how to build the alternative of it for the time being, till this sanction thing is removed. And we have done these things, sir, in if you see space, if you see nuclear, we have done this. How we have come over the sanctions, and we have been highly successful. Even today, we are one of the top nuclear. We may not be like America or China or Russia, but we are considered to be, we are taken a force to reckon with in the nuclear field. We have a delivery capability through missiles, the missiles program, the space program, the nuclear program, the 3 programs. How it happened? Another factor which you can mark it out, all these programs were led by very charismatic persons. They had direct connect with the top bosses of the country. Nobody would mess up with their thinking process. Everybody knew that, yes, no finance, nothing, no bureaucratic procedure. So for the space, we had Satish Dhawan. For the, I'm talking about Raja Ramanna, etc. For the nuclear, and for the missile, we had to start with IGMDP. I worked in the order factory, and thereafter in the Ministry of Defense, where Abdul Kalam was the ex-president. He was the main initiator of that. So all these programs, so why we cannot identify such an enlightened, charismatic person for such projects, at least for major components of the technology transfer. Say we take up as an example one particular technology being offered to us, and put it under this particular group. We constitute an outstanding officer from the armed forces, from the production agencies like OAP, like PSUs, and private sector too, and academia and DRDO and other. There are a lot of research institutions also I have seen in the private sector. So they can all come together, and some system can be created at the apex level in the country, which is outside the bureaucratic ambit. And if some relaxation is to be done in the standards, this particular group will take a call on it. Then because armed forces officers are already there on board of that committee or that group, they will see that whether this relaxation is in line with their ultimate operational philosophy, or the perspective planning, etc., etc., and then they can give go ahead after some study. So this particular group will have lot of such virtual experts, digital twin experts, and a lot of other technologies what are new. they can have that and then do some organizations have to be seconded to this particular group and carry forward. So this is what I want to suggest for this.
Well, I think that's a lot of food for thought for us and also for our viewers who are listening in. You have given some very positive and very practicable approach to solving specific issues. Like I mentioned, engine, I think if somebody, we make a group like this, then certainly I think we can make headway. Yeah, please go ahead, Mr.
General,
Gupta.
I have made some points which, because you are talking about my template that how the ToT, because a lot of equipments are coming under ToT are part of it. Some broad, because I'm not going into technical part, otherwise it will be little too much overdose of the information. Like we have to have, well, like X technology, I'm not talking of any specific technology being talked about. We must identify the key areas of expertise where we want to focus. Say a component is ABCD, and there are say 100 areas in that. We have to identify where the national capability we have been discussing in this forum also. We focus on those key expertise. So this is particular monitoring group at the centrally can do it. Then we have to also identify people to do it, strengthening the human capability. Of course, the sending agency, sending country or the organization will have to offer the training and insights in that. They have to conduct visit to their R&D facilities, and their, so this group can go ahead. We have to have collaboration and the partnership domestically as well as internationally for it, because I firmly believe knowledge knows no boundary. So we cannot replicate the the entire reinvent the wheel again and again. So we have to have collaboration. Of course, the indigenous innovation is being promoted, and it has to be further strengthened and put it in a faster pace. Another area which I feel that at the same time, the testing and evaluation, the quality control system has to also come up. We cannot neglect it. So the QC movement has to start immediately, quality assurance thing. So it has to go hand in hand with the technology thing. And the domestic production will certainly get flip word. The another weak area, what we in our country, like foreign companies which fear, is the patent enforcement in India. It is not very strong like in US or in Western countries. So they always fear the patent infringement. So that is where we have to strengthen. It is on way for improvement, but then we have to fasten the pace of it and then do it. Then we have to also develop a technology absorption plan, very clear-cut plan for that, because the country's resources are there. We are investing money in that, and that enlightened, that charismatic person, whoever you identify, to carry forward this particular thing. Also establish technology transfer teams, like if particular group, and they will be answerable right even after 1 decade. Say some improvement happens, this team should be tasked that yes, what you learned 8 years, 9 years ago, and this particular team will be once it is institutionalized, you will see that the team works with the academia, with the research institutions. I'm not, when I talk to research institutions, it's not DRDO alone. There are other, like every PSU, every private sector has some small, maybe that they come forward, they learn, and they then scale up. Then facilitating knowledge transfer is a complex process. So we must build a template for that. It should not be left. Like presently it is happening, like you bring the technology of some ABCD product, because I'm not naming the product, otherwise that PSU or that organization's name will come to your mind. So ABCD product is there, and you have to facilitation process has to be made before you hand it over. Otherwise, currently what happened, that ABCD product is handed over to that organization and it is left to them. Then after 10 years, when army asks that I have to now upgrade because world over this product has become ABCDEF, then we are again clueless that the original technology was ABCD. We could not add EF to it, and there were again the TOTs, and the sending company or the country will like to capitalize on our misery of it. So we have to see, and somebody has to be made responsible at the apex to at least monitor it from distance. Then, of course, human resources is there. We have to also streamline the regulatory processes. So our own regulatory processes should be such that the sending country is so clear that once it is handed over to us, it will not find way to some undesirable country or the elements. And our regulatory process are so, because US, they are very clear. Even for, you see, for the predator also, entire process has to pass through that. Though it is committed, it will happen, but then the entire rigmarole has to be passed, and then you will get the approval from the concerned authorities, and through the FMS it will come. But in our country also, we have to strengthen this regulatory system. How will we do? Or we have to set up a separate regulator of the technology. We have to think over it. But it should be as less as bureaucratized. Keep it away from the bureaucracy. That is one good thing. It should be there. And of course, ultimately, the monitoring and evaluation of the progress of this TOT or the process has to be there. So this is what I thought over it, since you assigned this task to me, that this is not all. I wish that others also pull in their mind, and in this MRO group itself, the brilliant officers of the maintenance team, they can contribute, and they are the first people, as I have been telling, that getting exposed to the technology of the new weapons, which even the production organization may not see it first. So we can fine-tune this template and come forward. But a lot of putting of thoughts is required over this. It should not be just given the document. You are assigning it to, say, ABCD product is assigned to XYZ organization, and you forget it. It cannot happen like this. So that is what I want to add to whatever I said. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, you have added a lot of very important points, and they are food for thought, and also maybe we can discuss them in detail, each one of those points in our future discussion. We would love to have you back with us here in future also. And we could, from time to time, touch various aspects of what you have said, a very large canvas you have covered, and come up with suggestions and ideas which will help the present decision makers, because from the experience which we, our group people have had. So that is the purpose of the group. The purpose of the group is to share the wisdom of, decades which we possess. And I'm sure whether in industry or in policy or anywhere, any organization, anybody who's listening to this may get some ideas from what you have said, and we may find them, benefiting from it. So, as I was saying, I would love to carry on with talking to Mr. Gupta on this matter. Each point which you have raised can be discussed in greater detail. But for now, we will maybe stop here, and we will come back again and do another discussion.
Yes.
So with that, we thank you, viewers, for being with us. The link to Mr. Gupta's think tank, and he calls it a think factory, and also the link to his LinkedIn profile is there in the show notes below. You're welcome to get in touch with him. And if you find the material which we are bringing to you of interest, do subscribe to our channel. We look forward to having you back with our channel in future also. We are actually a platform where we have MRO professionals that have come together, and there is no, you are welcome to join our platform to be a part of it and give your views for the gain of nation building. And we look forward to having you with us. You just use the links, one of the links below, to get in touch with us. With that, once again, I thank Mr. Gupta for being with us today. And thank you, viewers, to you also for listening in. Thank you, and Jai Hind.